today we are going to be having a conversation about our identity as women and the journey that this encompasses. Now, I would like to know where you're joining us from, so please tell us your name in the chat box, kindly introduce yourself and let us know where you're joining us from. I'd love to know the people we have in the room with us now. This program is brought to you by Herstory International, and Herstory International is an initiative of Bay Publishing that is a platform that's set up to write, to document women's stories and to amplify their voices. And Herstory International does this with writing women's autobiographies, documentaries, and also the Women of Valor Awards. Now, another platform that Herstory International uses to amplify the stories of women is also through our community dialogue that is organized, just like this one we're attending, that is organized once in every quarter. So now this is the program, the discussion for this quarter, June edition, and once again, you are highly welcome. Now introduce our first speaker for today's dialogue. Our first speaker for today is Dr. Ifeoma Monwuba. She's a development specialist with more than 32 years experience in strategic management, program and project management, public health, development communication, social marketing, and advertising. Dr. Monwuba is the immediate past director and representative of the Ghana Multi-Country Office of the United Nations Office for Project Services. From August 2018 to September 2025, she represented UNOPS in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone, overseeing large-scale infrastructure and procurement projects across a variety of sectors, including renewable energy, agriculture, and health, amongst others. And she holds a BSc in Mass Communication from former Asitec, now ASUT, a Master's in Communication and Language Arts from the University of Ibadan, and another Master's in International Law and Diplomacy from the University of Lagos. She holds a certificate in International Health from the University of Washington and a doctorate degree in Mass Communication from Caleb University. Dr. Ifeoma has advanced professional training in gender and women development, leadership, human resource management, as well as on economic literacy and program and project management. She's a Population Leadership Fellow with the University of Washington, a Fellow and Life Member of the Institute of Strategic Management Nigeria, a Fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants of Nigeria, a full member of the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria, and a life member of the Association of Communication Scholars and Professionals of Nigeria. Dr. Ifeoma has received a number of awards and recognitions, including the award of an Invisible Giant by the African Civil Society Coalition for her work in promoting social justice on the continent. In 2024, she was listed as one of the 100 leading women in Nigeria by the Nigeria Women Annual. Dr. Monwuba recently published her memoir titled Race and Grit: My Journey of Faith, Purpose, and Leadership. The memoir is available on Amazon and Seller. Dr. Ifeoma is a person of faith, a devoted wife, and a mother, and she's currently running her own consultancy firm. Dr. Ifeoma will be speaking on the topic, The Lived Evolution Story. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ifeoma Monwuba to the June edition of the Herstory Community Dialogue. You're welcome, ma.
Thank you so much, Antonia. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. Thanks for joining. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I recall speaking with Moyo, and she wanted to know a little bit more about my background. My name, as has been mentioned, is Ifeoma Monwuba. I'm the first of 10 children, born to the family of late Sir and the JOS. The strict upbringing that I had at home with my late parents, they very much grounded us in Christian values. And my father were 9 girls and a boy, and most of the girls came earlier on. My brother was number 8, so you can imagine that there were already 7 of us girls with them by the time he came around. But my father valued education for all of us equally. I recall my earliest memories were of the informal kindergarten that I went to back then at Nnewi, and at some point, because of the books my father gave me to read and coached me, my kindergarten teacher, she would say something and I would interrupt her and try to tell her that she's wrong. At some point, she got tired. Told my parents that I've outgrown her class, that I should be head into primary school. But back then, you needed to put your hand across your head to get to your ear to confirm that you were ready. And of course, that took me and I wasn't ready. It was my mom actually that did take me, and the headmaster made me do that and I wasn't ready. He basically told I should go back home and wait until I had grown tall enough. Of course, I was having none of that. I went off immediately to my father's workshop and cried, until he took me back. And the headmaster, but Dad was willing to negotiate. And he said to the headmaster, "Can she just sit in your class? Let's assume she is not a formal member of your class, but please have her in." Was quite surprised, but that basically told me that I loved that learning environment. I later moved on to Lagos with my uncle, where I studied at Onward Nursery and Primary School, and later came home to my secondary school, Anglican Girls Secondary School, Nnewi, known also as Nnewi Girls. And from there, of course, to the degrees that have been mentioned in the bio. I won't begin to talk into that in detail, but one of the things that changed my life and influenced where my life now went to was the encounter of faith. In August 26, 1993, I gave my life to Christ, and that changed everything for me, because it meant that I had a very clear vision of what I wanted to do, which was making sure that whatever I did was something that God wanted me to do. It also influenced how my job choices were made. So if you read my bio, read my book, you would see that the choices of where I decided to go were really something I left in the hands of God to do. And every job that I now took became, something God asked me to go into. And where there are rejections, I've had a number of those, and even still having now, where you apply and you're told, oh, they decided to move with another candidate. I took that in my stride, anchored on the scripture that all things work together for my good. So every door that didn't open meant that that wasn't the right door for me. That faith also carried me through journeys, even when I go on flights. My jobs have really taken me across the world, a lot of landing and takeoffs, and I've had my share of turbulence, airbags deploying. But in all of those, I was grounded in that fact that, he said he'll be with me in my going out and in my coming in. And this has also influenced how I raised my children. So one lesson I would like to take away from these first 2 aspects of my life, the one with my parents, is that for fathers, who believe equally in education for their children, it will change their trajectory. Remember, I'm coming from Nnewi, first of 10 children, 9 of whom are girls, the first 7 being girls. If my father wasn't there, standing and wanting me to have an education, then I wouldn't be where I am today. And then on the issue of faith, I would say to everyone, do not go through life without a relationship with your maker. He holds the blueprint. So make sure that whatever you're doing, you're working in tandem with your God, because that was what helped me. And when we look at my climb and the way I embraced the opportunities that came my way, I recall in my second year, at the end of my second year as an undergrad, we were required to do industrial attachments. My late uncle, Paul Ufondu, drove me to Business Magazine to go there because I was studying mass communication. But I embraced it, I was given a beat, the executive leisure beat, to go interview executives and find out what they did for leisure. And it was during one of those interviews at Sunrise DMB&B that I was interviewing the copy director for the agency, the creative director, Sheila Wale. And she said to me, "Oh, you're such a good journalist. How long have you been doing this?" And I said, "No, I'm still in training. This is just my first industrial attachment." And she said, "Oh, the other branches of mass communication, have you considered advertising?" I said, "No, but that I have another industrial attachment coming up at end of third year." And she said, "Why don't you try advertising? You can come over here and learn." And that was it. By the time I came back in third year, she was even away for her master's program, but she told them, yes, I made a commitment to her, put her in client service. And I worked there with the passion of a full-time staff. I resumed as early as the office started and left when everybody else was leaving. And that defined my career for the next almost a decade, because when I went back to school, having learned so much about how an agency worked, that when we had our course in final year on advertising, and the lecturer just gave us, a contextual question, I was able to deliver to the point that Dr. Ozo was marking and gave me 120 over 100. And it was when he summed it up that he realized that as he was grading every question, that he was giving me the maximum mark and over. And that came from the way I immersed myself during that industrial training that I had. And that also changed things for me. We graduated in 91, and there was an issue with our going for youth in Nigeria, for international audience that are here in Nigeria. At the end of your degree, you're supposed to do a 1-year national service. But because of the issue that happened in my school as we graduated, we were told to wait at home for 6 months. 6 months was a lifetime. I just couldn't sit at home for 6 months. So I went back to Sunrise, and they said, "Oh, we have other students on industrial attachment. There is no place for you, but our receptionist is going on maternity leave. If you want, you can be a receptionist." I embraced that opportunity instead of sitting at home. And I did that. And while I was doing that, because of the way I then immersed myself in doing it, one of the founders of the agency was able to get my NYC moved from where it was originally Edo State into Lagos. And I served in Lagos and worked in Sunrise during my service year and continued working there up until when I resigned from there in 1997. So again, being fully involved in I left there for my master's at Unilag, and then from there got into Society for Family Health. In Society for Family Health, again, all that I've learned, because I wasn't just looking at client service where I worked in advertising, you had copy, you had media and other branches. I learned everything. And that enabled me to go into Sunrise and become the advertising agency inside Sunrise, doing everything, working with art, creative people to create the jingles we were putting out for HIV/AIDS and sexual and reproductive health campaigns we were doing, traveling across media stations in Nigeria, negotiating with them and placing those media content there for the campaigns we were running. And within there, I rose 3 times in Sunrise, had 3 promotions within there, and then moved on. I moved on from there to study in Seattle as a population leadership fellow, like was introduced at the University of Washington, but came back with skills that enabled me to now pivot my career into the water and sanitation sector, where again I worked for 4 years as head of governance, advocacy, and partnership at WaterAid. Again, working deeply and being very dedicated to what I did. That opened the door to ActionAid, where they were working on 6 different sectors, and again, learning from that and finally getting into UNOPS. Just basically saying this, that, the lesson I would want my listeners to take away from here is that do not let anything limit your aspiration. Prayerfully explore every opportunity that presents itself, and even when they seem too large, if God brings you to it, He's going to see you through it. So please take every opportunity that presents itself. I did, and that's why my story is being heard today. I would also say stay qualified for every stage. Do not just sit with what you've learned 10 years ago. I kept evolving. I took advantage of both formal studies. My PhD was just in 2023, and that's just 3 years away. So continuous learning. And then, of course, on-the-job trainings that were going on as well, and other informal courses I took by myself online, some of them paid, some of them free. So basically, know what you don't know. If you're going to have a skin in the game, know what you don't know. The world is evolving and you must evolve with it. I give an example of WaterAid. We moved into economic literacy, where we were teaching people to read and interpret the national budget and hold the government to account. I remember that my background is in mass communication. I had to learn what that meant and be able to help and support our partners through it. And where I knew that I didn't know it with the depth to be effective in my role, I employed an expert. I remember a colleague saying to me, "Oh, he's going to outshine you." I said, "No, he's a member of my team. And when we succeed together as a team." So I wasn't afraid of that skill, anybody outshining me. He's shining his shine, I'm shining mine as team leader. So always surround yourself with people that know. And then I would say lead with honesty as well. Where you are leading, people need to see the integrity. You don't just speak it, you need to demonstrate it, both in terms of how invoices are being balanced, what you do with your power, you don't abuse it. So great leaders really are people that lead by example, and that is what I tried to do. And I've already said, never stop learning. So if you're taking lessons out of what I'm saying, I would say to you that you cannot use the skills of yesterday to solve tomorrow or today's problem. Just keep learning. In workplace, a whole lot of things happen. There are workplace ethics that you need to have. So I normally will advise, I invited a lot of ladies to this event because we are the ones that always find ourselves in trouble, where you are not showing up and putting your best feet forward. You stand the chance of being harassed. And so one of the things I did was make sure that I know what I'm doing for every role I found myself. Know when work starts, know the policies and the leeways you have in terms of leave, time you need to take your children for immunization and all of those. If you leave yourself vulnerable, there might be a predator around who might want to cash in on that. So please make sure that you know what you are allowed and stay within that so that you don't make yourself vulnerable. I didn't. Even when my children were ill and I find myself in the hospital overnight, I carry my laptop with me and make sure that I don't give any room for anybody to have anything against me. In the workplace and even at home, sexual harassment happens, and I feel that I needed to put my voice out on this. I did mention it in my book. I had my fair share of either close relatives or at work in my early career, and that happened. But I drew strength from my faith to be able to say no, and of course that came with repercussions. But what I did was to make sure that I'm working my work to the highest standard, so that whoever was hitting was not going to find any excuse about lopsiness in my work to say anything. And then also maintain safe boundaries. Because I traveled a lot, you make sure that you don't put yourself out where somebody can take advantage of you. So your reputation is your greatest career asset, and you need to build it on truth, and of course be consistent so that people don't have reason to prey on you. And one other thing I want to say, maybe before I begin to round up and close, is work-life balance. As a woman and a career person, you're not a elastic woman. You can't do everything. So when you're at work, plan your work and give your work your full attention, working at the highest quality standards for that role you occupy. But at home, be present. Most of us mix it, and at home, you have so much work going on. And in the, excuse me, in the office, you also are mixing things up. So, sorry, I'm losing a code. At work, give work your full attention, and at home, be there present. Especially with people that have younger children. I raised all my children traveling with them for work. And so you need to be present. You need to see what they are consuming in terms of media content. Most times we're so busy that we just give them to the television or give them to our devices. You need to be present. My children, my daughter is on this call, knows that things like Johnny Bravo, Ed and Eddie, or whatever, one violent cartoon like that, I basically said no way. And I blocked those things and said you're not going to watch. But you wouldn't know the contents that are harmful to your children if you're not sitting and present and seeing what it is they are consuming, so that you can moderate what is happening there. And children are going to come at you. I had one of my children say to me, why can't you be like other moms that drop their children and pick them in the evening? Because I might drop you on Monday morning, but you won't see me again until late on Friday because I'm heading to the airport after dropping you. That question did got me. I think the one that hurt me most was my last baby. One of the days I was dropping him off and his siblings, and he was really crying profusely. And my colleague, the logistician, the driver that was taking me to the airport, said to him, "Oh, Chiboy, why are you crying?" And he said, "Look," he said to her, she's going to at least make more money to take you out and all of that. And he said she doesn't need more money. She has this card that when she puts in the machine, it gives her money. So she's already wealthy enough. She doesn't need more money. I just want her to be home. But I had to take time to explain that, when I'm home, I'm home. When I'm away, I used to tease myself that I parented by Skype. It was mainly Skype then before all these other platforms came in. And I always try to call in, check on homeworks and all of that. So most times it's not easy when you want to run your career and your home, but there are many tools available to us now that we should take advantage as parents, as mothers, to be present even when you're not physically present there. And the thing I need to also say to all of us is, because you're not an elastic woman, have your support system. It's not optional. I had my parents, my mom came out to stay with my children when I was in Seattle. I had my sisters. They were my backbones. And shout out to all my sisters, Chigozie, Bele Onyinye, and the rest of them. They were there with my children, and that gave me peace of mind when I traveled. And then, of course, I had friends that would come in to check on them. Chinwaba is on the call, Chioriri. They come in and check on these children while I'm not there. So please have those around you. And then your faith family, at least for me, it was the faith family, Pastor Keshku Emmanuel, Dedi Hanuzoma, Pharmacist Hanuzoma, and the wife, all coming around and checking on these children and making sure they're okay while I'm there. But please leave a legacy. Remember to do that, and think and ask yourself, after I'm done, how will I be remembered? We're just here for a while. Think about that. in Seattle, we were asked to write our 10-year vision. I wrote that in 2005 as we were graduating. And I said to myself, I want to be heading an international organization by 2015. By 2016, I was country director in ActionAid Senegal. By 2014, I'd already gone to Haiti as interim ActionAid country director. And by 2018, I was a multi-country director heading 5 country offices. So again, have your vision written, because when you have it written, you hold yourself accountable to work towards it. Mentor young people. That's something I love doing, because you need to give forward what you have learned, because that helps them to build. They will find their own paths, but at least you can share what has helped you and the mistakes that you would want to have done differently. And then, of course, being gratitude and graceful. All we have is given to us by God. That's my belief. So you don't raise your shoulders at other people. It's just that time and chance happened to you and you had a better life. And then for everybody on this call, write your story. I was introduced by a friend of mine, Patience Ekoba, to her story. And when I contacted Me Publishing and they showed me what they've written, the Herstory is a 50-page or so story of yourself, which I encourage everyone to do, because we each have stories to tell. But I decided that, I've lived a life that would not be contained in 5 pages, and I decided to work with them to actually do the autobiography up until this stage in my life. I left out quite a bit because the last office I worked in, we're not supposed to go into details on what we did there. So that is even not in the book, but it was still a rich context. So please, I encourage all of us, try to write your stories, and please grab a copy of mine. Know your purpose, share your blessings, touch life, and also be able to help the younger ones. And why is it important to tell your stories? Especially for women. Stories told through unconscious biases, without distortion and reality, basically helps people to feel themselves inside that story. Most times we don't tell our stories, and when we don't, the stereotypes remain. And so it's important to deal with that. I won't finish without mentioning the issue of unpaid care work. Most of the time, because we don't tell our stories, our movies, our films, our narratives come with distortion. Even the AI movies and short clips that have been done now all project women in a very patriarchal role. You're supposed to cook and do everything, and everybody is telling you, oh, the man's money is no longer enough, you have to work. But you're saddled with all the care work at home. Those are conversations that need to be had now. It's the topic of my PhD thesis. I watched some Nigerian movies, and it was liquid with just portraying women cooking and cleaning, and husbands stopping them from working. And then when they kick them out, either because they don't have a child, or they don't have a male child, or because they are old and no longer fit their status. Please, whatever you do, for the ladies on the call, make sure that you have your own income and negotiate with your spouse, your partner, what happens with your unpaid care work. Is either he's willing to help you with it, or somebody's paying for a professional care provider to do that for you. But you can't die under the load of care work. It also sets women back in their careers, and you need to have that conversation on how to do it. So please start today, tell your own story, write a page, maybe about your childhood, or record your voice note about any particular point in your life. Tell your children about your life, and sit with parents and hear about their own, but document your story. Is not waiting to be perfect. It's just waiting to be told. So please share that. In conclusion, I will say to everyone what I would have told my younger self. Know your purpose. Think deeply about why you're here. Where you find it, be ruthless and true to it. Follow it through, explore it. Don't let anybody tell you that, because you're from this part of the world, you can't pursue it. Pursue it relentlessly. Let it be your North Star. And then let nothing define your ceiling. gender, ethnicity, family background, poverty. None of this can stop you. It didn't stop me. I'm a living witness. The only limit is where you say God cannot take you. But as long as you believe in God, you can get anywhere. And then finally, study, serve, and stay open. Keep learning, pursuing good opportunity with God's guidance, and serve wherever you're placed. Because faithfulness really in small things, is my experience, opens the door to big things. Thank you very much for listening to me. And back to you, Antonia.
Thank you so much, Ma, for sharing your insights and experiences with us. It was so beautiful listening to you talk about your journey, the lessons you've learned, and also sharing those nuggets as to how all of us on this call can chart a course forward, a better, see how we can, look back to our journey and see, okay, what can we incorporate into our lives to be better? Thank you so much, Ma. It was an honor having you on this call. Okay, we'll be moving to the second speaker. Our second speaker will be coming up next, and she is Her Excellency Josephine Nkrumah. She has served as ECOWAS resident representative in Liberia from March 2022 to March 2026. And prior to ECOWAS, Ambassador Nkrumah served as Executive Chairperson of Ghana's National Commission for Civic Education. As a maritime law practitioner, she was a local consultant for the International Maritime Organization, advertising on maritime security and sustainability, drafting IMO convention model laws, and conducting workshops across West Africa. She served as Executive Secretary and Legal Advisor to the Ghana Association of Stevedoring Companies from 2003 to 2012, championing indigenous port operators' interests and shaping key industry policies. She also advised the Ministries of Parliamentary Affairs and Transport and lectured in maritime law at the Regional Maritime University, Accra. She holds an honorary doctorate from the University of Liberia, a master's in law from the International Maritime Law Institute, Malta, a qualifying certificate of law from the Ghana School of Law, and a bachelor's degree in law and French from the University of Ghana. She is a lawyer with 29 years of professional practice, an accomplished Ghanaian public servant, and a civics rights and responsibilities advocate. Many of her roles have demanded both high-level government and private sector engagement, as well as engaging different strata of society to address socio-economic and political governance issues. In her private life, she's a single mother of 2 adult children navigating university and future careers. She mentors young women in their career and personal pathways to empower them in society. She anchors her faith in God as central to her life, and she holds a strong conviction in positive values as the bedrock to societal development. When she's not busy at work, Ms. Nkrumah bakes and enjoys culinary adventure and entertaining family and friends as a wonderful way to navigate work-life balance. She will be speaking on the topic, external expectations and identity pressure. Please join me in welcoming Her Excellency Josephine Nkrumah. You're welcome, Ma. The floor is yours, Ma.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this great platform. Let me use this opportunity to thank all of you for graciously joining in these conversations, and also to thank the previous speaker on her nuggets of wisdom. I have 2 takeaways from her. One is, tell your story. Don't wait for your story to be perfect. Tell your story. So I'm going to take advantage of what I've learned from her today and begin to use that to, document my own story. And like she said, it's not a perfect story, but it's waiting to be told, and I will tell mine too. Again, welcome, and I'm speaking on the topic, external expectations and identity pressure. When I was invited to speak on this topic, it took me some time to, gives you the moment to look back on your life and ask yourself truly, What have been people's expectations of yourself? What have been your own expectations of yourself? Sometimes your expectations of yourself are driven by the environment in which you find yourself, and of course, the pressures that are associated with it. My story is very much tied into a childhood where I was the first child of my father and first daughter of my mother. Sorry, of both parents actually. And so that in itself gave me that big sister stroke, mother role that you would play when your mom wasn't home. I come from a smaller family, smaller than Dr. Ifeoma's family. We're four. My mom from her previous marriage had a son. And then with my dad, she had myself, my younger sister, and then a younger brother. I have always looked up to my big brother. We have a 14-year gap. And so he's always doted on me as his little sister. But at home, he didn't live with us because he was much older, so he lived with our cousins. But so, and that in itself gave me that role of being the leader in the home, the one that my parents, expected to live a certain way, conduct myself in a certain way, in order that my younger siblings would follow. So it was always drummed into me that you've got to make sure that you do the right thing so that your younger siblings can follow in your footsteps. So that in itself also created the pressures that are associated with a young girl growing up. And when my younger siblings did anything, I was made to take the blame for it because I was told to be able to keep them in check, especially in school. So through that, I kind of developed this attitude of, as I was told much later in life, in fact, just about 3 years ago, that I had developed a mother hen syndrome, which meant that I found it almost impossible not to try and protect anybody that I thought was within my space and was what needed some protection. So for my siblings, I was their champion in school. I would fight anybody who attempted to do anything to them, and I would make sure that I fiercely protected them. This attitude or this upbringing and the environment in which I found myself created in me the seeds and the birthing of leadership. And so right from nursery all the way through to all of my academic education, I always played a leadership role. I always ensured that I gave of myself, I gave of my best, because that was what was expected of me. My parents also took education very seriously, and in that regard, it meant that I could not joke with my education. I think that when it comes to the influence of furthering or pursuing my education to a much higher level, my mother played a very dominant role there. Even though she herself was not highly educated, she ensured that I took my studies extremely seriously. So I found, looking back, that a lot of the things I did were actually as a result of my mother's influence on me. Like most societies, the fathers go out to work, they come back, and the mothers are supposed to take care of the children. And I feel really blessed to say that I have a mother who, despite her own limitations in terms of education, she ferociously, pursued all of her children to make sure that they got the best of education. And that is what, catapulted me into, seeking to learn every time. I grew up in a home where books were never far from your hand. And so whether it was your birthday, Christmas, Easter, holiday, name it, all you would get was books. So we had a very, very, voracious appetite for reading. And so I would read anything and everything. And I think that really exposed me. And so I just want to encourage all of us here to take reading seriously. And in today's world where social media really takes up so much of our time, if you're not intentional about seeking knowledge and pursuing knowledge, you will find yourself left behind in many conversations, and it also becomes sometimes an impediment in both your personal life and in your career choices as well. And so for me, these are the some of the very simple skills that I picked up as a child. My mother and dad both were very intentional about the kinds of values that they immersed in us at home. So discipline, hard work, honesty, and integrity. They were cardinal to everything that we did. And it is some of these things that have carried me through my life to this day. And so wherever I find myself, I ask myself, whatever I'm doing, will I be proud of it, whether or not somebody is watching me? I ask myself, can I do what I'm doing better than I've given of myself? And when I think that there's more in me to give, I do so. Why do I do that? Because as a young girl, even growing up, my mother didn't understand why I would be second or third in class when I'd been first before. So I couldn't come home and be happy because I was second in class, I was third in class. It was not good enough. If you could be first, then you have no business being second or third. So it always pushed me in all that I did. And for anybody who's worked with me, they would know that I push myself, and in the same way, I push those I work with, that you give of yourself. And that is also anchored in something very crucial to us as not just as women, but also as a gender where oftentimes we need to go the extra mile in order to be recognized. We need to push ourselves, and we need to put ourselves out there by giving of our best. And so that pursuit for excellence is very important for each and every one of us. Having that sense of the pursuit of excellence in whatever you do is an essential skill and value that we must learn. Work is a very different terrain, but it's inextricably linked to personal life. I say that because for most of us who are here as women, our lives are lives of service. So at home, we would serve our partners, we would serve our children, we would serve guests who come in, we would serve extended family. And when we go to work, we are also expected to serve. And sometimes when you're not careful, you may find yourself in a position where you begin to resent that expectation of service. But one thing keeps me grounded in service, and that is a Hebrew word that goes by the term avoda. Avoda means work is worship. And so for me, whatever work I do, I don't see it as just putting so much into what I give of myself, but I see it also as worship to God. It's worship to God because it's an opportunity for you to express gratitude to God for the strength He's given you, the knowledge He's given you, and the ability to be able to execute service. And so when you see work as worship, it changes your whole mindset about what work is to an individual. It is no longer just something you do to earn a salary or something you do as a societal expectation of you at home. It is actually an act of worship to the God that we serve. External expectations and identity pressure. As young as women on this platform, many of us have had occasions where, because of gender, we have felt either slighted, excluded, or limited in opportunity. I found the whole concept of gender growing up almost foreign to me, because at home, my mother never gave us that perception that there was something that girls did and there was something that boys did. So I never even understood this concept of gender. And it became such an issue for me much later in life when I realized that, oh, there are things that happen to you or do not happen to you just because of your gender. And that is specifically in terms of academic pursuits and career. So I'll give you this story. When I was in class 4, I was about 9 or 10 years old, and I was the class prefect. We had a new teacher who came into class, and he was a male teacher. When he came into class, he didn't understand why I was the class prefect and my assistant was a young boy. So he flipped the positions and made the class prefect. He made me the assistant prefect, and he made the boy the class prefect. So I got home very upset about it and not understanding his comments that why should a girl be class prefect? Because from nursery I'd always been class prefect. So I was wondering, what does he mean by why should a girl be class prefect? So of course I told my mom, and my mom would not have any of it. The following day she marched me to school and insisted that the headmaster reverses the decision that the teacher took. For me, it was more out of a sense of justice than even understanding the nuances of, male versus female gender. I even couldn't appreciate it at the time. For me, it was more a sense of justice. If I've been given this position, I have earned it. So why do you come and reverse it and tell me that this other person is a boy and so he should lead over you? So it was very, very, I think the better word to use, I was still very naive about gender. Growing up from there, my mother said, you can do anything you want to do. So in fact, by the age of 17, 18, I was riding motorbikes. My mother, encouraged me to push myself in any shape, in anything that I wanted to do. So when young boys were riding motorbikes, she said, you can ride a motorbike too. And through that, I had this fierce sense of, I can do whatever I put my mind to, because that was how I had been brought up. And those were the pressures that I had also put on myself. So every time there was a challenge, for me, the positive thing about those external pressures and expectations was that I could do it. I could also do it. I finished secondary school and I decided to go into military training as a young girl. Many of my friends who had been more or less conscripted for national service and military training did not want to do it. They cried when they were chosen. But me, no, I was eager and ready and, gung-ho to go into this. And through military training, one of the key things I learned is that as human beings, our mind is so powerful. So powerful what we tell ourselves on a daily basis, how that drives and shapes our career, our lives. And I use a simple experience I learned. We used to go for a 5-mile early morning endurance run every morning. And I remember that when I got up and felt, I said to myself, oh, today I'm tired. It was almost impossible for me to run. But one day, one of the things I did was when I got up, I said, today I'm going to run. And somehow this Christian song just dropped in my spirit, and I believe it's scripture. It says, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings of an eagle. They shall run and not faint. They shall walk and not be weary. So every time I was running or we were walking, as I ran or I walked, I kept affirming that to myself. They shall run and not faint. They shall walk and not be weary. And it was a turning point in both my period of national service military training and in life generally. I realized that even for physical things that we did, the mind is powerful. And so no one should ever limit himself or herself by thinking that you cannot do something. Tune your mind, affirm to yourself what it is that you want to do, and I bet you can do it and do it very well. Motherhood has its own challenges. I had the honor of being a mother much later in life. I had my first son when I was 36, and then my daughter when I was 37. So I have 2 children, and like most women who are navigating both career and motherhood, there are so many expectations on you. But as women, when you want to pursue something, the previous speaker said, having a network of support and being able to manage your time in a way where you don't become an excellent worker that makes you a mother who is mediocre, or become a mediocre worker in order to be an excellent mother. It's a very fine balance, and drawing on the strengths of your social network is of immense importance. Your family is important. The person or your help in the home is important. And I want to use the side of what the previous speaker said about unpaid housework. That is from usually the point of view of women who are at home looking after children and are deemed not to be working. But if you have the opportunity where you also are able to have paid house help or paid house help, take full advantage of it. The important thing is to understand the value that house help brings to the home. The delegation of some of your work that enables you to go out there and excel at what you do so that you can also provide for the home. For me, that was crucial and cardinal to some of my upward journey period. Why? Because I realized that without that support, it was difficult for me to travel to work, difficult to stay out sometimes when it was late, difficult for me to come back at certain hours and be expected to cook and provide for the home. So that house help became what I referred to as my 2IC, my second in command in the house. I was blessed with that revelation of the importance of that individual, and that enabled me to attain some of my great successes, because I had somebody that I respected. I had somebody who I saw as adding value and bringing premium service to my home in order for me to go out there and excel. And so in this part of the world where we find that house helps are not as a luxurious commodity as it is in the Western world, when you have house helps, please treat them with value. put premium on what they do so that you can go out there and be the best that you can do. But that in itself does not mean you delegate all of your responsibilities to them. They are there to complement your efforts, not to take over your will. And I want to share that to show you, to just express how we can meet some of those external expectations through delegation, and also understanding the value of those people that come to the table to help us. I come from a very patriarchal family from my mother's side, and so I was raised by a mother who served, cooked everything at home. And even though she did that, she made sure that for us, her daughters, those cultural expectations did not limit the pursuit of our own dreams. She said one thing that always stuck with me. She said that I don't care what it is that you want to be. Just be excellent at how you do it. So whether you want to be a lawyer, whether you want to be a cleaner, whether you want to be a carpenter, the important thing is bringing your best self forward in that position, in that role that you want to undertake. So that is why you have a cleaner who will clean the halls of authority, who will clean seats of government, who will clean palaces and castles, and you have a cleaner who will sweep the slums, the gutters of a slum. It is how you do it, and the only way she accepted was to do it with an excellent spirit. And it's that same spirit of excellence that we must apply to everything that we do. So it's not so, don't think that because someone is a lawyer, you also have to be a lawyer, you also have to be a professor. If you're a baker, be the best baker there is to be. Every day, push yourself, learn new things, and ask yourself, how do I set myself apart from others? How do I raise my standard to this next level that makes me premium to wherever I go? I remember telling you that leadership was thrust on me. And with leadership comes many sacrifices, many challenges. You would find yourself in positions of sacrifice where you will have to bend over backwards. I've had positions of leadership where I had people who were my deputies or my assistants begin to sabotage you. But one of the things that you must learn in leadership, that it is beyond you, especially when you are given leadership of an organization. Then you must understand that you carry the vision of that organization with you. You carry the mission of that organization with you. And you will have to be bigger than yourself because you're carrying a bigger vision where you have people who look up to you. And it takes a strong sense of responsibility to carry that out. You will have to turn a blind eye when people you know who are supposed to support you are there to bring you down, and look deep within and not degenerate into personality clashes. That is one experience I learned, and I learned it painfully in a way that you are not able to say to people what you're going through all the time because you are the leader. And when you fail to see that bigger picture and you degenerate into personality clashes, at the end of the day, the buck stops with you and any failure comes to you. So in your leadership journey, know that there will be challenges and you have to dig deep from within to realize the bigger vision that you have. And it is when you have learned those lessons that you are catapulted into the next line of a vision, or sorry, the next line of leadership. National service as women is not only about, or public service is not only what you do in your public space. I learned that some of the most important things that will make me that require of me a certain value system that enables me to thrive. And for me to pass on those values, I must not just live it in the workspace, I must live it at home too. Which means that everything that I do, I am a role model for my children, for the people who work around me, and for those who see me both in the public and personal spaces. And those values, as I was said in my profile, they are the bedrock of society. And each and every single one of us has a role to play in developing society. We play it in the very simple things we do that help build a society that's organized, that has a sense of inclusion of everyone, or a society that is chaotic and only looks to pander to the wishes of those who have it. And so I would urge all of us that wherever we go, the values of building up a society that is inclusive, a society that is compassionate, a society that serves humanity, begins with the everyday attitudes, values, and habits that we exhibit. Those things make all of us role models, all of us mentors. We don't need to hold an elected or appointed position to be a leader. It is the everyday things you do that make you a leader. There is a leader in each and every single one of us. And these are the things that make us grow. One day, my daughter was watching this movie. It's a sitcom, Mrs. Maisel or something, I can't remember it. And it was a bit of an adult theme because it dealt with a woman growing in the entertainment industry. Into her, she had to compete with men, and it portrays the she encountered in that space. One day I looked and I said, "But why do you like watching Mrs. Maisel?" She said, "Mama, it reminds me of you. She's hardworking, she's strong, and she's confident." I said, "My God, these children look up to us, and the things that we do every day are the things they imbibe and the things that can inspire them to be better or influence them to be the negative, to replicate some of our own negative attitudes." So we must be intentional about these things. So the expectations of our children is not so much the things we say. They say talk is cheap. We should walk our talk. So how do we walk our talk? We can't walk our talk just by, talking big. I want you to be honest. I want you to be a law-abiding citizen. And yet you're sitting in the car and then she sees you give a bribe, or he sees you give a bribe to the policeman. How then do you become the kind of citizen that you want society to be, so that you can develop and build strong societies, especially in Africa? I also want to talk about public service, not from the point of serving both in personal capacities and in the public space. But for me, public service thrust on me issues of governance, issues of inclusiveness, issues of environmental stewardship, and all of some of these issues that I'm raising them to show that in as much as we speak about these things on certain platforms, they are really anchored in the everyday values that we believe in. So if we believe that this world can be a better place by the sort of stewardship that we exhibit, whether it's exhibiting stewardship in environmental practices that safeguard the environment, whether it is exhibiting attitudes that show that you believe truly in the principle of gender inclusiveness, whether it's about youth empowerment, it begins with those things that we do in our private spaces that find expression in our public service. And that is what, for me, is some of the expectations that I realized that I couldn't be speaking one thing on a public platform and coming home or being in the personal space and doing something different. So wherever I go, wherever I am, I seek to uplift women. I seek to uplift the youth, because I am keenly aware that without women and youth, we can never build strong societies of peace, societies that ensure the well-being of all of us, societies that take care of the vulnerable. We must be intentional about living a life that reflects what we say out there in the public and what we do. These things all generate pressure, because whether we like it or not, we have expectations from others, we have expectations from ourselves, and it helps to shape our identity as growing as women. But for me, I believe that identity, truly, the basis and the crust of identity starts from the very early formative years. And so when the formative years are positive, it will always find expression. Sometimes we lose our way, but we will always come back if we trust that there is a God we serve, if we trust that there is a greater purpose beyond ourselves, and if we believe that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, then I am confident that the identity that we want is an identity not just by what has shaped us externally, but it should be an identity also in Christ. So for me, I can only speak as a Christian, but of course I also understand that there are other religions. In those religions, there is no religion that seeks evil. Almost every religion is there to ensure that we live at peace with one another, we show compassion, and we show love. And that is an innate identity that is created in each and every one of us. And once we have that identity, we have that identity, we would do things that nurture it to grow us to be better, to be stronger, and to be impact driven. I'd like to thank you for your time in listening to me at this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ma, for that wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and also the lessons that you've dropped. I'm sure the participants on this call have gained something, and leaving here, they will leave here with new knowledge of the things you've talked about concerning external expectation and identity pressure.